Collinsworth in it. Are you guys both
Me,
Collinsworth in it?
me and you, John. Me and you.
Oh, okay. Should we both have our wrist braces on? I have to put mine back on.
Okay. I'm trying to move.
No, I shouldn't do that, Joseph, because that would be mean to you.
Hold on.
And I'm not that type of person.
There we go.
Bull crap. Excuse me. Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode number 29 of season 2. Hope everyone has had a nice start to the September month. We're already halfway through the month, halfway through invitational season, still plenty of racing to catch up on. And so we have the full cast once again with myself, Mason, along with John, Becca, myself, Mason, and of course, the Collinsworth today, Jessup Pelkey. Nice transition, sir. That was well done.
Only the best for you, Mason.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for helping a guy out. Want to do a shout out to our presenting sponsor for the 2023 season, Hitch Harness, and Tyler Hall, who got another feature win this weekend over at the Buffalo River Speedway. So congrats, bud. You got that car worked right at the good point of the year. And so if you're a truck owner, own receiver Hitches, head over to hitchharness.com to check out the inventory they have. It's a big time of year where you're doing all sorts of products to have safe receiver hitch storage or efficiency with your projects. So check out the website, check out all the stuff they have for racers, including pole bar brackets and chassis dollies. Thank you so much, Tyler Hall, for supporting us on the podcast this season. And so we come to the lineup, which might be a little bit controversial, but here's
Never. Us having controversy, never.
No.
Really? We're going to throw a caution on the lineup? Oh my gosh.
I've got my flags ready.
I'm sure you do.
He's ready now. Okay, go ahead, Mason.
Well, the lineup goes like this. John Breckle on the pole, followed by Miss Becca to the outside, and then followed by yours truly, and Jessup bringing up the rear today.
Jessup, you're scaring your kitty.
You know what? You're going to scare Oli off the screen.
You're getting all three flags. Red flag for stop the broadcast, black flag because Mason, this is and Becca gets a caution just to start the race off like she normally does.
See, this is why you're in the back.
Well,
John, how are you doing this week?
I am doing well. So it was a fun week at the 100. I am ready for the Stock Car Stampede, one of our big shows of the year that Becca and I go through and announce. And excited for that. However, a little disappointed in the weather forecast, obviously, for the weekend. So we're going to hope that improves. But if not, we do have a backup plan. So that'll be good as well.
It's always good to have a backup plan. And yeah, weather forecast isn't looking great, but we'll kind of get into that throughout the episode. Miss Becca, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have been spending my last couple of days prepping and getting ready for the 52nd Jamestown Stock Car Stampede. Just getting some notes ready, getting some just all the fun facts, the tidbits, just mentally preparing for this coming weekend. Hopefully the weather does change between now and then, and hopefully we can get the weekend in. But yeah, the weather's not looking too promising, but fingers crossed that things change and we'll get to go racing this weekend here at the Jamestown Speedway.
Yep, echo that as well. Mr. Jessup, outside of football, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Mason. We're just fine. Everything's fine. The NFL's rigged. This podcast is rigged. We're just fine.
There's like two memes I should put here. The dog with the fire round, and then have like the Kyle Busch meme where he goes, "Everything's great," because that was an iconic interview. Probably defines Jessup very well right now. I'm
It's
doing
fine.
I'm doing great. Coming off a very fun weekend, very exhausting weekend too. It was a lot of walking back and forth through the pits at the WISSOTA 100 this weekend. We're going to get into all those shenanigans of the weekend. Before we get into that, be sure, if you're watching and or listening, be sure to give us a like, share, comment on the video, subscribe on Google, Apple, and Spotify so you can kind of follow our content throughout the race season or the remainder of the race season and the off season, and give us a 5-star review on Apple so that way Jessup can read it on one of our future episodes. So do that right now, as we're actually going to get right into it with the drop of the green flag. And who or what are we repping? This week we'll start with Becca. Who or what are you repping?
This week I am repping one of the Stock Car Stampede t-shirts. This is the 51st annual. So this is last year's one of the many t-shirts you could have purchased at the Stock Car Stampede last year. This was my favorite one, and that's why I purchased it. On the back, you can see all of the past winners in the past 50 years when this t-shirt was made. So, and this t-shirt comes in handy when you're announcing, when people message the announcers and they're like, hey, didn't this guy be the second driver to sweep the Stampede or sweep classes? And then you can have me or John or Mason be like, actually, he's the third driver. That actually happened last year. But so it does come in handy for the announcers when they're trying to lay some fun facts out.
It does.
Yes, we make sure as an announcer group that we lay down the right facts at the right time as well.
I would say, I think I was actually up in the announcer's tower for one of those instances last year.
You were.
It's like, oh, wait, we need to double check this.
Yes, because Luke Krogh swept the IMCA Sport Mods and the IMCA Stock Cars, and he was the third driver to sweep more than one class at the Stock Car Stampede. The first being Hank Berry, the second being Travis Sauer.
You are correct. Yep. Hank Berry did it in 2003. Travis Sauer did it in 2012.
So yeah, this is a great t-shirt. I can't wait to see what the t-shirts come out this weekend. Hopefully, again, fingers crossed that we get to race at the Stock Car Stampede this weekend. If not, John's got the rain dates that he can just rattle off. And but yeah, hopefully we won't need rain dates. We'll be racing Friday, Saturday.
Rayman's got the rain dates. Seems fitting. Awesome. Great week to rep that shirt. Jessup, who or what are you repping?
I'm continuing on my theme of irrelevance, as rules seem irrelevant around here, and I'm unjustly being punished. So I am wearing a Montana Raceway Park from 2013. And it's all I really know is that it's like an asphalt track and it's in Montana. And that's all I care to know about it. So continuing on in my theme.
Are we gonna give away one of Jessup's irrelevant
I said I'd give them all away, but nobody was.
We have to.
5-star.
Well, we do have our Pick'em League in the NFL. I know week 2 is already come and gone, but anything can happen. I mean, if you can,
we could start giving away prizes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's prizes. Thank you for reminding. I need to list the prizes too for that league. Now that the busy weekend's out of the way, yeah, it's nice to kind of get a day or two to catch up on life. So awesome, cool shirt to rep there, Jessup.
Mm-hmm.
I will go next on who or what I'm repping. This driver has been on a hot streak. Well, besides the hat, Tyler Hall, who's also been on kind of a hot streak too, winning over the last couple weeks. But this driver swept the John Seitz Memorial in the Midwest Modifieds last week. Got a qualifying feature win this weekend. It was sold at 100. Mr. Matt Scow in a 2S out of McIntosh. And this shirt is kind of from, I don't know the exact year because he had the scheme for quite a few years. Mid 2010s is when he had that scheme and hasn't really changed it a whole lot since then, kind of a little bit different. One interesting fact, because he was he's really close with Reese Stenberg, and they, up to just a few weeks ago, I found out, have been racing like their own chassis, the SS chassis that Reese Stenberg kind of puts together. Didn't really realize it, but Matt Scow has an SSR race car that he's basically been racing over the last few weeks, and it's been really, really quick, and it definitely showed over the last couple weeks. So I didn't realize that, but definitely seen an uptick in speed over the last few weeks for Matt Scow. So that's who I'm repping for this episode. which leads us to John Breckle. What are you repping?
Oh, it's history lesson time. So, but Becca's got the 51st annual Jamestown Stock Car Stampede shirt on, and I am repping the 48th annual Jamestown Stock Car Stampede shirt, which was issued back in 2019. The shirt has the 2018 winners on it. And here is my first question for all of you great race fans and podcasters. So, how many cars were at the 2018 Stock Car Stampede?
One
What was
billion.
the car count?
A lot.
I was just going to say that.
1 billion.
I was waiting for it.
203.
Way more than that.
I was thinking
200
310.
Mason's right. He's right on the dot. It was 310 was the car count back in 2018. So good job, Mason. High five. So Mason wins that prize. As who were the champions? Let's start with the Bomber Division. Who won the Bomber Division back in 2018? And yes, Becca, I know you're looking it up, but I'm going to let you answer a
Why
couple
does she
times, but not
cheat?
all of these.
John, can I do this because Becca's cheating?
Becca is cheating. She's doing her research
Oh,
and
actually,
looking
you
it
know
up.
what happens? You know what happens to people who cheat, Becca? You know what happens? They get the
They get
black
black flag.
flag.
I haven't said anything.
Doesn't matter. We know you're cheating.
As an announcer, I need to be prepared and have my notes, and I can't help it that I just have this information at hand. Not my
This
fault.
might be This might be
she
a
is
tech moment,
prepared.
Mason. Hold on.
She is prepared. Just so this is one thing I'll give her. It's more than I can say for a lot of announcers out there.
Yes, John, but we're gonna do a live hot pit review here. John, keep talking.
Why?
Okay, so my guess for the Bombers was going to be Kurt Michelson.
Wrong.
Ooh, you're close, Mason. You're really close, but it wasn't Kurt.
Oh,
Kurt was actually the 2019. Remember, this is 2018.
okay.
18 was also the year, if you guys would like to, have a little history lesson even more here, was the year that Becca decided that it was cold and she needed to wear all those layers during the stock car stampede.
Oh, is this the infamous picture?
Yes, this is the infamous picture year was 2018. Now, to Becca's credit on this one, to Becca's credit, by the way, these two are hilarious right now. During that year, we started the day out. It was like mid-60s. It was nice, sunny, beautiful weather. Right before the sport mods came out on the track for their feature event, the hobby stocks were already in their feature. The wind switched directions. We had a cold front come through, and the temperature dropped a good, probably, I would say, 20 degrees in the matter of about 15 minutes. I mean, it got cold. The wind came out of the north. That wind picked up to about 25 to 30 miles per hour, and it got cold. And it was a cold rest of the night within the grandstands because the wind was blowing, Mason, basically like right into us. And it was definitely a cold night. I remember you came over and you're like going like this as you're trying to do some stuff. Your hands are shaking. So, but no. Okay, so Bomber future winner, Jason Miller.
John,
Yes.
we
Oh, you guys are back. Well,
have
Jessup,
a
you're not
situation. We have a situation in the pits. I don't know if you guys can see this. There's Becca. And folks, she got caught cheating.
Oh, look at that.
That's going to be a black flag on the field.
Well, considering Jessup does inside research all the time, I consider this research pertinent to the show.
You do not get to change the rules. The hot pits.
You remember that one?
Frustrated. I think his phone died. And so he came upstairs to take my phone to look up the results from 2018. And the results are kind of wonky because
And now that is a caution on Becca.
This was the year, Becca.
Apparently,
Yep, this was the year that they couldn't get Jason Miller's name into My Race Pass. He was a registered driver, but they had a glitch in the system and they could not get him to go through and to draw. So they had to actually create a fake account, which Stacy did it. Stacy Little did it. and it was actually not Jason Miller. It's actually Jay Little, right?
Oh,
Is that
Little.
what it is? Yep.
Mm.
Yep. So they did it just for that one too because they couldn't get his name into the system.
Which
So
now, like, obviously it's 5 years later, 6 years
yep.
later. I know how to fix that, but back then that option wasn't available. So
Correct.
if my race pass glitched out and it didn't work, you were making these like fake profiles or like typing ZZZ
Yep.
first name, ZZZ last name, and
Oh,
then
that's when that would come up. Okay.
and then you'd be typing
Yep.
race or emailing my race pass on Monday to be like, hey, can you merge these two drivers together? And so sometimes you'll come across, you'll still see like a
Like Clay Getzka was that way. Yep.
So, a little wonky results, but yeah, as John mentioned, it was Jason Miller that picked up the Stock Car Stampede Championship that year.
And what's interesting about that too is that was, I believe, Jason's last feature.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
he has
I don't
run in
think
a
I've
car.
seen him race since then.
I think that was his last feature that he ran in a car, sold the car, and hasn't been in a car since. So yeah, so congratulations to Jason on there too. IMC Sport Mods. Who wants Sport Mods? This driver is a multi-time Stampede champion. Becca, you can answer if you want to.
Okay.
Go
What
ahead,
did you
Becca.
say, Jessica?
Go ahead, Becca.
I heard it. One of those
Luke
two.
Jessica, yeah.
Luke
Yes,
Rowe.
Luke Krogh. Yep, Luke
Yeah,
Krogh won in
yeah.
2018 in the Sport Mods. So, good job, Jessica. Who won
Good.
in your WISSOTA Midwest Modifieds?
That's Becca's. She's got the answers up. So Mason's going to allow cheating. So I don't know why we even
Mason
have
will-
those.
Mason, we'll let you go first.
Oh gosh, I can't even think of a guess because the one person I want to guess won it the next year, I believe.
Yep,
Okay.
he
Well,
did.
I'll give you a hint. Reese Stenberg was second.
I got nothing. I can't think of a because Brock won it the year before.
Yep. And then the driver that won it in 18 won it both in 18 and 19. And then Brock won it again in 2020.
Jessup cheated and looked it up.
Go ahead, Jessup.
I could tell. I could
What
see
year are we going for, John? Is this the 2018 shirt?
Yes.
And we're looking for the 2017 winner?
Yes.
Wow. Mason, you already said it.
Jessup, we're actually I steered you in the wrong direction. We have the 2019 shirt on. That's the 2018 winners.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're doing 2018.
Had this-
I'll just guess Lucas Rodin. I don't think that's it though.
No, it was Preston Carr.
Oh, okay.
Preston Carr ended up winning it, and then he won it again in 19. So he was back-to-back winners
Horrible at lying to me.
in that one.
So
I know I'm just a horrible person.
That was a
WISSOTA
whole
Street
night
Stocks.
ago.
Who picked up the WISSOTA Street Stocks back in 2018?
Zach Frederick?
No. I'll give a hint. Now Becca already knows that I know. So second place was the old man Jerry Lamb, and he got passed on a restart by this driver.
And Becca told them to do something.
Wrong track, wrong year.
No, that happened at the same track, different year.
Next year.
Yeah, next year.
So
It was at the
so
same
who won?
track.
Becca?
It was
Becca, who won? It was Jeff Hellman.
I've
And
got
Jeff had
the
a-
answers. I'm not going
Jeff had a very nice run at the 100 this past week. Finished top 10 in that feature event, started 16th and finished 8th. So congratulations to Jeff. He's had a very nice season.
question, John. Was that the year Jeff won in 2018? But was that the year that when he got to victory lane, WISSOTA officials were there, and they
Mhm.
didn't like his paint scheme, and I think there was some drama in tech.
Yes, they didn't like
Yes.
They
The-
changed.
They didn't like the decals.
stickers.
Yep, the decals. They were not a fan of the decals on there because it was like part of the wrap, and they weren't the color.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
They were like the black color of the paint scheme.
Someone
Which is-
took like a vector artwork of those decals and,
Yep.
and switched them to fit his paint scheme, and WISSOTA was not a fan that they weren't the original colors or the original logos. of
Correct.
the businesses. So there was some drama after the races, but Jeff got to keep the win. I don't think anything truly happened, but some rules may have been made because of that.
Yes. Yep. So Jeff ended up winning the street stocks that year. Who won the super stocks? That was the last time the super stocks were at the Jamestown Stock Car Stampede.
I'm gonna say Dave Moss.
Yes.
Oh, dang. That was
Yes.
not who I was going to guess.
Who were
Yes,
you
Dave
guessing?
Moss ended up winning that year.
I was going to guess Dan Gullickson, but I think that was the year before.
16 was Dan Gullickson.
Yeah.
The
16,
year
sorry.
before was Dave Moss.
17. The year before was nobody because True Superstocks were not part of the Stampede in
And the
2017.
year before that was Dave Moss. And the year before that,
No,
Dave
no.
Moss.
Dave Moss won it in 2018, Jessup.
And when the first
then-
year of Superstocks ever came out, it was Dave Moss.
Okay, so
And then the second year was Kurt Myers.
IMCA Modifieds. Who won the IMCA Modifieds?
Is it 11 car?
No.
What? Can I get a hint of what state they're from?
They're from North Dakota.
Oh, good. That helps.
That narrows it down.
That really narrows it down.
That really narrows it down. No, I think Casey won it in 2020. I was going to say Casey Arneson.
Well, Mason, you would be right. He won it in 18 and 19. Was when
Okay.
Casey won. Yep. So unfortunately, Casey's no longer with us. But he was the Stampede champion back in 2018. And then who won the WISSOTA late models in 2018? We had
Dustin
actually talked
Strand?
about him last week episodes.
Dustin Strand?
No,
Lance
Dustin
Matthews.
Strand was runner-up.
Don Shaw.
Nope.
Ricky Weiss.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Ricky murdered everyone that year.
Well. We do have a caution now on the field.
Back.
Back up.
Who's Ricky Weiss?
It's Ricky Weiss.
Sorry.
Ricky
So
ended up.
confused.
It's just like when she said, back that year, it wasn't Jeff Taylor, it was Jeff Turnbull during the Dakota Classic Modified Tour a few episodes back. So, but no, Ricky Weiss ended up taking home the late models, and that was the year that he left the World 100, went to the sites, won the sites, then went on to win the 100, then went on to win the Stock Car Stampede, won the Fall Classic, won the Red Clay as well. So,
Ricky
so he had
year.
he had a really good invitational season that year across the board and won the national championship as well on top of it with late models. So, but yes, and then in the slingshots, they actually ended up with 16 slingshots that year, and Dexter Saxon, who was actually a IMC modified driver now, ended up winning the slingshots that
Awesome.
year at the Stampede. So yeah, yes, 310 cars that year. So I know I went a little bit long, but that was my history lesson for the week as we're into Stock Car Stampede week here at the Jamestown Speedway.
Absolutely. And like we said, fingers crossed that the weather cooperates, or if it doesn't, we have a backup rain date scheduled a couple weeks out. So yeah, that's always one of the big events that we all look forward to at the end of the season, and should be a lot of cars there.
John, if the weather does take a turn for the worse, what is the weekend that Jamestown has slotted for an official rain date?
Yeah, because the weekend that they got approved by WISSOTA, and then as well when they put out their schedule with IMCA was October 6th and 7th. So that first weekend in October is the approved date. I know it goes against a couple of specials as well that are out there. Unfortunately, Fall Classic obviously with Ogilvy, but obviously that's their last resort if they can go to the 6th and 7th would be Jamestown's rain date for the Stampede, which is going to be the case now. If they can't run Friday night during the Stampede, obviously they'll evaluate weather conditions to see, is Saturday an option to run the full thing on Saturday, just get it all done throughout the whole entire day if weather's good, or do they need Sunday? So Sunday obviously is an option on there too. But then if the whole weekend's a wash, then it would be the October 6th and 7th timeframe.
And Jamestown's really good about really trying to make the weekend work. So even if I was a driver and I was a little worried about the weather, I'd still go just because Jamestown is very good about trying to make the show run, even with the weather. So definitely.
And if they can't physically do it, they'll definitely make an announcement on Facebook or their website really soon to see from where that's at. I know there's been some discussions already to go through to say, hey, this is what the weekend forecast is. We're going to monitor it. If it can't happen, we'll make that call sooner rather than later.
Excellent. Awesome. So thank you for that update on Jamestown. And that is who or what we are repping for episode number 29 of season 2. So getting to this week's track pack report, it's going to be pretty hefty with the WISSOTA 100 taking center stage. but I want to start with the Pelkeys. Were you able to watch any of the WISSOTA 100, or racing-wise, what did you watch this weekend?
We saw racing, yes. Yes. Some of the 100, some of Williston, some of the legendary 100. And there's something else I watched, but I can't remember.
I watched NASCAR. That
Did you
was
watch Lucas Oil at all for the Knoxville Nationals?
Oddly, no. I kind of figured Ricky was going to murder everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And he did.
Yeah, he's
And
been
then
on
obviously
a-
Bristol.
Which is interesting. Let's go on that subject real quick. I was watching Dirt Tracker as John mows down on his animal crackers like a
I have an
gazelle in the
addiction.
field. But it was interesting. After the Eldora race, all I heard on Dirt Tracker was how Ricky wasn't going to win the Lucas Oil playoff deal because he's cold coming out of Eldora and he's not good there. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, wow. After that, he just destroyed everyone Thursday, destroyed everyone Friday, and then destroyed everyone while everyone destroyed themselves on Saturday. I think I like his odds to win the Lucas Oil. It's just so fascinating that all the national people, once the top guy ends up losing one race or has one not stellar weekend or it's not at their best track, they instantly say, "You're done. You're not going to do it." And everyone goes, "Yay, yay, we agree."
think that's all sports media. Like, how often do you hear like the NASCAR folks be like, "Oh, Kyle Larson hasn't won in like 8 races. Oh, his team is in a slump. They're not going to do well." And then he goes out and wins a race and just destroys the field. Like, I think that's all.
Yeah, but there needs to be some sort of repercussion for this. They got to start eating crow. If
I don't
get a
disagree with
wrong
Joseph on
pick-
this.
when I get a wrong pick, everybody lets me know about it. But if Dirt Tracker or whoever else is out there makes picks and then they spout off from their rear end, and next thing you know, their picks are all wrong and they look very foolish, and then the next week, well, I could have told you that was gonna happen. But you didn't. You said it was not gonna happen, and now you're taking credit for something that you said wasn't gonna happen.
because they spin it so that way they don't look so foolish.
Just eat it. Who cares? I mean, I get it. You got a rep to protect, but it's dumb. Just own up and say you were wrong and say it was a bad call, and the beat keeps going and the drum keeps pounding on as Ricky's going to go and put another beat down on him this weekend.
And you mentioned the playoff thing. Are they in the midst of that playoff
Yeah,
right now?
I think they are.
I haven't been following Lucas Oil at all, so I don't know exactly how it's all playing out right now.
Well, Ricky's in the middle of a record year for Lucas with the amount of wins that he has. And it's just funny that we have to gimmick these things to attract people who don't really care about the gimmick.
This is a good point. NASCAR. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
Yep.
Anyways,
So you and John were at the WISSOTA 100. I know Jessup watched from time to
Did you
time.
see any racing there?
just a little bit.
Just a little. I mean,
Hey,
I definitely I didn't take as many walks this year as I took in previous years.
I wonder why.
Oh gosh, yes.
Would
So
you like to explain that, John?
Yes, there wasn't that many breaks in action for cautions and other stuff during the 100. So
Yep.
yeah, they ran the show pretty smooth and pretty efficiently this year and got through it pretty quick.
they actually did. It was a really, really quick ran show this year at the 100.
I'm excited to hear what you guys thought was really good. I've got a list of pros and cons that I had from that came out of this, just from an outside perspective, and I think it was pretty fair. John and Mason, can I present this list to you guys, and
Yeah.
you guys
How about
say
this?
if they're fair
Jessup,
enough.
you go first on it, and then because I've got two. I've got like three things that I know some people had messaged WISSOTA already on them. On that one too, I have about three of them that I'm thinking that I'll probably message out just from a fan's perspective, because overall the week went really well.
Yep, I've got
But
about
there's
9
definitely, just
pros,
areas for
and
constructive feedback. Yep, go
I've
ahead.
got some 9 pros and about 2 cons, and then one idea that I would like to present to WISSOTA for future 100 opportunities to
Okay.
shed a light on the greater WISSOTA area and representatives. So my pros, just hear me out, see if this is no specific order, but they brought in a good band. The Johnny Holmes band is a very well-known band throughout the Midwest, and they do really good. And it seemed like from the photos that I saw online that it was greatly received and appreciated by drivers and pit crews and fans. So that would be a really good pro. I think that's one really nice thing that they did. Any thoughts? Yay, yay, nay, yay.
Oh, I think it was good
Yeah.
too. Yeah, and I think it was good.
Was that
Yeah.
the first time you've done that? I don't recall them.
They've done bands before, but I think this year they really did get a good. I'm not saying the other ones weren't good, but this one has a bit more of a name,
Bigger fall.
and I think it actually brought more people in, and it
Agreed.
also caused the races to go quicker too. So that's kind of a good thing too.
Yep, I was
Number-
gonna say they worked hard to get that show done right at 10, because that's when the band was scheduled to start, and they got done basically right on 10. And then everyone kind of I was like mingling in the pits for like a little bit afterwards, and everyone's like, you know what, we're gonna go over and hang out at the band. And by the time I got over there just to get a couple quick pictures, like there's a sea of people. Like it was packed there over in the tailgate and camping section. So it was really well received.
Cool. So my second one, I think you guys would agree with this, and this is for most years, but they had a really fun field of drivers this year. Really diverse, spanning across WISSOTA, east and west, and then we got to see some names that we haven't seen in a while, like Buzzy Adams and his kid were there. That's pretty fun. Meerhofer from out. Jeremy Meerhofer was out from out west. He's a really strong runner out there, so he was there. That was pretty interesting. And there's just some really fun names. You got Cody Overton was there. That was kind of a nice draw. The WISSOTA late models, whether the Challenge Series actually brought them in or not, had some good names there as well. So I think the second thing was just a really nice group of drivers, and really a lot of good names across the field as well for all the classes.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I was ecstatic to see Buzzy come over because, of course, like I don't think I've ever seen Buzzy race in person, so it was cool to see him. I figured Blake would be there because I know he's been in the battle for WISSOTA national points for a rookie standpoint. So seeing him there wasn't a surprise, but it's definitely seeing Buzzy there too was definitely a nice welcome to the field as well.
I think we already discussed the third one that I had down. They had a really good pace Thursday. I'll expand that throughout most of the week. I thought they had a really good pace for their show. I just can't stand multiple track preps in a night, and it does annoy me to great lengths that other big events do excessive track prep, in my opinion, but they also go through a lot of cars as well too. But that's a whole nether deal. But did you guys think throughout the whole week good pace for each night?
I would agree. I don't feel like there was a whole bunch of downtime. Wednesday, Mason, might have been the most track prep that we probably saw across the board, just because Wednesday was warmer, it was windier, and it was definitely it was sunny the whole day. So the track just was beaten in the heat. So they definitely did more on that one too. Plus, though, they had the WISSOTA Challenge Series finale there as well with the late model feature. So they wanted to make sure track was in good prep and good condition before they started that. So that night probably had the most track prep, but we still finished before. What was it, Mason? Was it like 11:30-ish,
10:30,
11,
just after
11:30-ish, somewhere in that
10:30.
range? So
Yeah,
yeah, so somewhere in that range. So I mean, we didn't finish by any means late on Wednesday, and then Thursday was really good, Friday was really good, and then Saturday night was really good for track prep too because they started the night out. Track was pretty tacky when they started the qualifying, for last chance races. So they did all those for the top six. Then they did the hot lap session for the guys that have already been and gals that had already made the show. So they were able to come out in various groups, and then they restarted again with consies and didn't really do a big track prep until we started basically the feature events. So they did the track prep before they started the streets. Had the streets run. The streets were booking it across that track.
hmm.
Midwest Mods didn't really have any track prep before they started. And then they brought out the water truck and watered a little bit before the late models, packed it in, got it worked in, and never touched the track after that. So there was never anything else that they did to the track before the super stocks came out or before the mods came out. And the track was racy. You could run top to bottom.
Yep.
A lot of the drivers actually said too on Saturday night, they weren't prepared for it to be as sticky as it was from like the track surface.
And it
Because
was cooler
although
than
it
it
would
had
like
been all week.
yeah, it was cooler and it honestly, well, Wednesday night got cold too, but the wind caused it Wednesday.
Yep.
But the moisture stayed in more on Saturday and it just made for, even though it got dry slick in spots, it was still very tacky on top and bottom, and slicked off more through the middle.
Interesting. All right. So the next one, I thought the camping atmosphere and competition was pretty cool. I like when tracks get the fans and the camping involved. It makes them feel like they're valued and a part of, you know, the the overall experience
That
rather
was
than
one area that I wish I had gone to the track a little bit earlier to kind of venture through and see. Because yeah, it's a really good camping area that they have around the track.
Yep. The next part that I think is fun for the 100 is that the decline um, process, where if you win, you can decline your position and race the next couple nights if you want. It's interesting. I think definitely makes it. I think it more worthwhile to end your points on that Sunday or that final night, just because then it's kind of like these are the final races you're going to get a chance to go for the national points, so choose wisely or forever hold your peace. But I think that's kind of really cool because you don't see a lot of other racing series or big race specials that do that, so that's pretty neat.
Can I kind of build off of that for a second?
Yep.
I found it interesting, especially in the streets and Midwest mods. Obviously, there's a big battle for national points in the street stocks. But if you think about like how many were in each class at that event, so we had over 60 street stocks and over 70, nearly 75 Midwest modifieds. And like the first night, you had like a handful of like Midwest mod drivers, for example, that declined their spot. And I'm like, honestly, with that, how many Midwest mods were there? That's a big risk because there's like 40 to 50 of them that could win on any given race night at their local home track. And so it's like trying to get into the top 24 of passing points of the qualifying feature is tough in itself. I mean, Lucas Rodin, who's a national champion, didn't make the qualifying feature on the first night. So it's not really a guarantee you're going to make it on any other night. So I was very surprised at how many people declined on that first night, especially in the Midwest mods.
Yeah, it's just something different. It's at first when I think I first started watching it, it didn't really make sense to me. Like, why would you leave the opportunity to be on the inside row of your sanctioning body's biggest race? But it draws intrigue and it gives good storylines throughout the week. So you're never as a fan, you're never really bored, and it adds a little spice to. Bless you, John.
Excuse me.
It adds a little zest for the drivers to, it gives them the risk reward option. So that was one that I think is pretty interesting for pros. Let's see. Decline process, we talked about that. Atmosphere. I really like the daily giveaways. No rhyme, no reason, just drawings for the drivers. Kind of a nice little touch to kick back to those who are supporting the race and supporting making the trip out there. So that's always nice, I think.
Yeah, they had quite a bit this year, more than I've seen in past years.
Yep. And let's see. Big tourneys, always good way to get people involved. Keep the fans active and excited and intrigued in your event. That was good. I know I know a lot of drivers don't like this part, but I still think the Parade of Champions is really good. And I think it's a unique touch. For race fans, it's something. For drivers, it's probably more of a headache than anything else, but it's a nice little touch that they have there.
Yeah, and
Uh,
to some drivers, it's a big deal to get in the front of the line for the Parade of
yep.
Champions. Like Mike Stearns, I'm calling out Mike Stearns because I think it's like 3 or 4 years running that he's in the front of that line. Like as soon as that last qualifier is done, he is like right there at the entrance of the track.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. I like 3 wide starts for the final night. I wish. Again, I don't think drivers like this, but I wish if there's a caution on the first lap, I wish they would restart at 3 wide. And here's why: because if you win the third night's qualifying feature, and there's a spin out in corner 1. The advantage that you have for starting in the front row is instantly gone. And I don't know if I like that or not, but I get it, less wrecks and whatnot, but I wish at least for the first lap they just restarted 3 wide.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It's like you literally look forward to seeing a 3 wide start, and I think 4 out of the 5 we had a caution on lap
4 out of
one.
the 5. Yep,
Yeah.
4 out of the 5. And some of those were pretty big wrecks too. I mean,
Yeah,
you look
I
at
get
a few of those wrecks, and Mods had a big wreck that happened in there. Late models obviously had a really bad wreck that happened on that one too. But yeah, just a lot of big wrecks.
And the final,
And I get it. Oh, and go ahead, Jessup. And I agree with you, Jessup, on that too. And the one thing that was maybe one of the points that I'll bring up a little bit later on this one too is that with a 3 wide start, when they did it that way directly, when they actually went through and redid the lineup on one of the races, it actually wasn't correct. And what I mean by that is that so the way that they typically do it is that obviously your first car in the inside row is your pole sitter, right? Because they had a 1. And then the driver that won night 2 starts on the outside of the front row. And the driver that wins on night 3 starts the middle row. Well, late models were different because late models did their qualifying over 2 nights. So your first place driver on night 1 started, bottom of the front row. Your second place winner, or your second winner, I should say, on night 2 started middle. And then third was on the outside because that's how they lined them up. So basically on night 1, it was your odd numbers that you qualified. So you qualified first, third, fifth, seventh, and on down from there. And then night 2, you qualified second, fourth, and blah, blah, from that piece of it. Well, they redid the order when they went basically back to just the regular double file start. And some of those positions were not correct. And it didn't hit me on there that they weren't right until they were going by the flag stand on the front straightaway when they were doing the double file, and Pat Dorr kind of put his hand out the window, like, why am I put in this position? And I got to thinking, and I was like, well, where's Pat actually from that lineup? So I looked at it and I'm like, oh yeah, he's not actually where he should be. So I was like, okay, so that's the format that they used for the other classes because that's how they qualified.
Yep.
Late models were different. They didn't qualify like that. So it really should have been split of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on back, and some of those spots were reversed because of that fact. So yeah, so that's the one area that I think was a little bit interesting, especially when you do the 3 wide starts.
Do you think Wednesday night's Challenge Series race should have been a qualifier as well?
I don't, because it was a different race
Yeah.
directly, but it's kind of weird because it's the first year they use that format, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. I wonder if though, here's my opinion on this. I wonder if with the way that the qualifier works on Wednesday, like with the Challenge Series, I would say maybe the winner of that event or maybe your champion of the Challenge Series should get a spot in the 100. Should be basically be one of those provisional spots, no matter what in the 100, just because of the fact of the matter that you've won that night or you're champion of the Challenge Series as a whole. You should be, maybe guaranteed a spot in the 100 field would be kind of one of my maybe takeaways from the Wednesday night program.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
But-
bunch of, I think, ideas you could kind of stem off of it too. Like maybe you give the winner of that Wednesday Challenge Series race the pole, and then maybe that first night of qualifiers starts your even positions from second, fourth, sixth, eighth, and then third, fifth, seventh, ninth, and so on Friday night's qualifier.
Correct.
Maybe
Yep,
that's
correct.
something.
Yep.
So my last pro I had, I'm sure I had a couple other, but I didn't write them down. My last pro was, I thought the announcing with Ron leading the way. I think he's a good, how do you say it, centerpiece to the event, and he's probably one of the main voices of WISSOTA, and I think he does a really nice job. We'll talk more about announcing as in just a few minutes, but I think it really, just like IMCA has Jerry and Ryan. Yep, those two. When you think IMCA and the Super Nationals, they are instantly the voice of the Super Nationals that you think of. And I think with Ron and the 100, it's the same type of pairing. It goes good. I've got an idea to help prolong that potentially for a few more years as we get further into like suggestions for it. But I think he does a really nice job. He's very passionate about it. He's got a good announcing voice. He's knowledgeable, and he can make any battle on the track sound exciting. And that is what I would consider to be a good announcer. He's professional. And I mean, if you look, if there's a proverbial checklist of what a good announcer needs, he knocks off most, if not all, the boxes to him. So I think that's a definite pro that can be taken away from it.
I would agree with that. And I even like the weekly shows he does at like I-94 and KRA, you see him in the pits afterwards, or even beforehand, talking with a lot of the drivers, getting to know him. Like, oh, hey, I saw you one out in like Watertown or out in Lisbon. And he's just like, he's already got like who's won at these tracks. And he'll like list off like, even online, it was like, he's won at this place, and this place. It's like, man, he's like it's like John level version of like knowledge. It's
Yep.
crazy how much he knows.
All right. Do you guys have any pros before we jump over to the cons?
I can list a few of mine that I had written down. I kind of going off of Jessup's, I like that national points counted each night. It definitely added a nice element that the announcing team and all the social media kind of got to kind of play up a little bit and kind of really hype up so that they know like, points are tight in each one of these classes or whatnot. And so drivers are probably going to be throwing out their starting spots, or if they won, they'd try to race again for more points. So I thought that was cool. One other thing that Jessup didn't mention, those trophies that the qualifying feature winners got and the winners on Saturday were super cool. I mean, those trophies were awesome. I couldn't believe like the trophies that they had. And then
you brought up a good point here that I guess I kind of glossed over. As much as I don't know if we've ever really ragged on it on here, but I felt they did a very nice job ramping up their social media going into the 100 this year.
Mm-hmm.
While I can definitely say it needs significant improvement and effort put into it the rest of the year, I thought they did a very nice job covering their product this past weekend and the week and a half leading into it.
Yeah, definitely. They were posting like crazy these last couple of weeks. And then I guess my other cool takeaway was just Really, it was really good racing all weekend. Really didn't have any issues with like it rubbering up. I mean, the track was super fast at some races, so it'd be like really one lane shining like with a lot of tack and a lot of speed, but never had any issues with the track rubbering that I can recall, John. Maybe heat races were a little
Same.
dry, but I couldn't
Yeah, the
recall.
only thing I could see, Mason, was like you said, heats. On Wednesday night, I think the heats for like the super stocks and mods started to rubber, but right after that they did track prep and got rid of it. So that was the only case that I saw.
Well, and keep in mind too, on Wednesday with the challenge series, they do qualifying, so that
Yes,
that eats up a lot of the moisture right away too.
agreed.
Those are a few of my positive takeaways.
Becca, John?
Yeah, so I will build off of this. Here's my takeaways too. And I'd made the comment to Mason, I think several times. It was really nice to see, how much work, how much effort the WISSOTA team as a whole put into that event. The event ran smooth from when they were doing qualifying races, when they were doing heats, how they did the challenge series, qualifying back to, heat races, B mains, and features. And I mean, that piece of it went really smooth. So they did a really good job going through and making sure that the show ran efficient, it ran within time, and there wasn't a whole lot of downtime. That was the nice thing too, is that it wasn't huge on the downtime piece of it. And I have to give kudos out there to the I-94 team as a whole, because from the beer stand to the concession stand to everything else, they were clicking through stuff quickly. I mean, the biggest line I saw was obviously on Saturday, and that's understandable because there was a ton of people there Saturday. And besides that, they had outside food vendors that were really good in there. They had an ice cream truck, which unfortunately I never got to this year. That was over in turns 1 and 2. And then obviously they have the back pit concessions side of it. There's also grandstand side because you can go through that one too. And then they had a pulled pork sandwich truck over to the corner that had a lot of food options, and just a lot of variety. So that was good to see from this year's 100. And I really appreciate everything that those guys do to make sure that event runs smoothly. Jessup?
One last one. It just came to me. I saw a photo, and I know I suggested this, I think 2 WISSOTA Net rules meetings ago. I saw a photo of one of the winners with the contingency prizes around the car.
Yep.
I think that's cool. I think that's really telling that they're at least attempting to listen and making efforts, because it used to be only like, here's a gift card, we'll just lay this on your wheel, and this is for $5 for oil, but it's $5 off of any $100 quart of, not quart, but $100 case of oil or whatever it was. And that was a nice thing to see, that they're stepped up their game on getting contingency prizes, and hats off to the effort that was put in for that.
Becca?
So my great takeaway from those little 100 was, I really liked that the Mod 4s, Pure Stocks and Hornets, got their own special event. In the past, I think they were shoved on a Tuesday night. They got 4 car accounts, and this year, for the first time ever, they had their own WISSOTA 100 event at Bemidji on Sunday afternoon, and they had fantabulous car accounts. Yes, I know, I made up a word for that, but fantastic car counts and great racing. And they got the spotlight on them, where in years past that never was a thing. So love that new change for the WISSOTA 100 format. I think that's a great positive thing moving forward for them.
Question for you, Kevin. I'll flip it another way here. Should that become a multi-day event?
Obviously,
give the Western folks a chance, because I'm fine with it being at Bemidji. It drew pretty good, but I think if you made it a 2-day or 3-day event, if we're really going to consider it as a full part of the WISSOTA 100, I think it's only fair to give them multiple chances. And you can even bring one supporting class each night. So like one night could be Super Stocks, one night could be Midwest Mods, one night could be Street Stocks.
Yeah, I honestly was kind of surprised Sunday. I thought Saturday might have been a better draw for them, just because if you were to travel a long ways, I mean, you still had Sunday to travel back home. Yeah, moving forward, I think there's things that they could do better with that event, but for the first time, for an inaugural event, I thought it was well executed, great car counts, and I like this change for the WISSOTA 100 format.
I do agree with Becca because Mason and I were obviously in the grandstands or walking around obviously when they were interviewing all the winners and when they interviewed pure stocks and they did mod fours and then they also obviously did Hornets as well. And that was one of the comments that we heard a couple times throughout the interviews was it'd be nice if it was moved to either a 2-day event or moved to a Saturday event because then they would have more time to travel and more people would be able to come over and that would be kind of nice too. So I think that's one thing that WISSOTA will look into for next year and improve upon on that event. But like I said, it was nice to see that the car counts were extremely healthy during that event. It was nice for them to get their own showcase of racing, and the track was in great shape, the racing was good, and that was just awesome to see.
And kind of just one last thing to build off of that. I think they did a nice job incorporating them into the intermission when we had some downtime
Agreed.
before the Parade of Champions. So they interviewed them all, and then they even got to lead the Parade of Champions, the winners of the MPH Invitational. And so I thought that was a really cool way to even further give them the stage.
Agreed.
Yep. You guys will laugh at this confession. So I was driving, was it this weekend or at some point I was driving to school to teach, and I'm sitting there just absent-minded like usual. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, MPH, miles per hour. That's funny. And I'm like, oh, mod fours and pure stocks and Hornets. Lol.
When the event first came out as the MPH Invitational, it took me so long to figure out that acronym.
And Becca just realized it.
Well, I knew that right away. Mason, when it first came out, when it was first announced, that because I think it was on the podcast when he was like, "Oh, I get it now," or
Yeah.
maybe we were just chatting before we recorded everything. But yeah, we were talking about this before the podcast or during the podcast, and he figured it out as we were chatting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The light bulb came on at that point.
For months, yeah.
So yeah.
Well, should we move on to some improvements or cons?
Go ahead.
So I've only really got one real adjustment. I got a couple adjustments, I guess, but one potential idea that could incorporate more of WISSOTA and give a better representation of everybody. So we've talked about announcing a good chunk here, right?
Mhm.
And I think we can all agree that Ron is the centerpiece of this. He is
Agreed.
kind of the cog in the wheel. And if I was WISSOTA, I would do Ron as one of your main announcers, where he's bouncing back and forth between every other class announcing or every other race. And then I honestly would try to pull at least one or two announcers from out east, like one from over by the Iron Range, one or two out west, and one from like our area, and then one from the southern part of the state, and then just rotate them throughout the week. And that way you get a good representation of everybody across the WISSOTA country. And it gives the announcers like value, because I think you guys would agree. I think we have great announcers, and I think they represent our area very professionally. I think the people out in the Iron Range and the Duluth area do a nice job. I especially enjoy listening to the guy from Grand Rapids. He makes me intrigued for classes that I'm usually not intrigued in. But I think the same can be said to the guys out west and in southern Minnesota and out in like the Aberdeen area. But I think it'd be a nice touch to do that for like all of the areas, rather than just, oh, you're local, we'll just pull you on.
I agree. And I think they got a good lineup with at least like Ron and Jason. I think
I
those
agree.
two, I think
Yep,
those two are
agree.
work really well. And kind of finding that third piece to whether it's doing the victory lane interviews for like heat races and feature winners, or kind of rotating people in and out, just to kind of get a different flavor. And maybe that it's an opportunity for them to kind of talk about their local area tracks, kind of what they saw during the summer, and talk about some of their local runners too, because it's nice to kind of get a good mix of like who is all fast in one area versus another, and kind of seeing like, how they stack up against everyone in WISSOTA country.
Well,
Agreed.
I would throw it this way too. Maybe you have Ron be the main guy, and then everyone else. Jason can be the second main guy instead of 1A. It's A1, right? But I
Mhm.
still think Ron would probably be the lead head of the announcing crew. But give the other handful of announcers like their own class to specialize in. So, like, I don't know, let's say for us, WISSOTA Street Stocks, because we specialize in that, or Midwest Mods, and then way out on the western side, well, they could have Midwest Mods or WISSOTA Street Stocks, because they've got a good, healthy representation of that out there. Iron Range could have either late models or super stocks, and then give someone else the modifieds.
Yeah, all good suggestions. I agree with that. So yeah, I think those are very good points that you made, Jessup, and kind of nice to kind of see, the improvements that they made coming into this year and what improvements that they have going into this next year. I briefly talked with Callie from WISSOTA afterwards, and she was very pleased with how the event went. And she's already saying like, they have like pages and pages of notes to go over kind of on what they want to improve going into next year. So very encouraging stuff from the WISSOTA 100. As far as the racing goes, we should probably talk about some of the results of the racing event, and we'll kind of quickly go through the qualifying nights, Wednesday through Friday, before we dive deep into Saturday's results. And I'll go through Wednesday's results. And like we said, it's interesting, like the first night of qualifying, on who would decline their spots. And so not every winner took their spots, but for the streets, it was Andrew Hansen that got the qualifying feature win. So he got to start on the pole for that race. Midwest Mods went to Matt Scow on Wednesday night. Very, very fast runner on Wednesday night. And then the late models, like we mentioned, did the Challenge Series, their finale. So they were officially crowning their series champion, along with having their, was it a 40 or 50 lap race, John?
It was a 40 lap race.
Okay, it was a 40 lap race, which went caution free.
Yep.
That was really good job by the late model drivers. And that was a very entertaining race. Between, I think it was Dustin Sorensen, Pat Dorr, and Ryan Michelson. Those three kind of swapped the lead through lap traffic. Ryan Michelson, I think, had the lead up until like 2 to go, kind of got slowed up by a lap car. And Pat Dorr, who would end up being your series champion basically by just starting the feature, got the win in the late models on Wednesday night. So congratulations to Pat Dorr and the Double One Express. Super Stocks, Dexton Cook in the 78K got the qualifying night win. Declined this spot to try to get more points because he's in a tight battle with Shane Zabrowski and Trevor Nelson within the top 3. So that was an interesting development. We figured that was going to happen. And then the modifieds went to the 60 of Dan Ebert, your Silver 1000 champion. So that was Wednesday night's qualifying feature results. John, what about Thursday?
Yeah, so Thursday was a lot of fun. Thursday, like we said, we had the Johnny Holmes band afterwards. So it was just a busy night overall. In your street stocks, Justin Vogel went from 6th to 1st in the first lap and ended up picking up that win, declined his spot. And that gave Eric Riley the outside of the front row for the feature event. And we know that ended up quite well for him upcoming here for Saturday. So really good run by Justin, but Justin is obviously right in the thick of that national points hunt and trying to get as many points as possible. Plus, he just likes to run. He just likes to race every single day. So he typically will run every single day at the 100, no matter what way it comes across. Now, in your Midwest mods, that was a very interesting race because you had a lot of close battles up front, and you had drivers coming through the field to try to get themselves into a qualifying position, and also drivers that were basically running for national points. So within your Midwest Mod division, Brennan Waite, one of our local drivers here in the North Dakota area, has looked really strong this season, and he ended up in victory lane with a qualifying win on Thursday night. So Brennan started outside of the front row on Saturday night. Lucas Rodin, one of his friends and close competitors that he races with almost weekly at several tracks up here, finished second that night. And Travis Sauer was third. So Travis came back there from ninth to end up in basically that third spot. So he would start on the outside of row 3. In your super stocks, that was a very interesting race. And the reason why I say that is because you had pretty much all of your top national point contenders still in that race on Thursday night. So Dexton Cook again was your feature winner. He looks extremely strong again on Thursday during the qualifying feature event. Dylan Nelson ended up second. Dylan looked really good throughout the week at I-94. Kurt Myers, he showed up on Thursday, punched his ticket to the big show on Thursday night as well. And third, Shane Sabraski went up 11 spots from 15th to 4th, and Trevor Nelson was 5th. Trevor Nelson declined his spot. So those top 4, though, they all kept their positions.
I will say I was surprised that Sabraski didn't decline.
I was too. I was very surprised by that because he kind of struggled though throughout the week. He didn't look bad on Wednesday, but Thursday he looked really good coming through the field. And I don't know if he just, if he wasn't sure what everybody else was going to do, but I was not surprised that Trevor declined on his spot, but I was very surprised that Shane did not.
Right.
That he did not take it, basically say, I'm not going to take the spot and I'm going to go through and run again on Friday. Your late models, it was your first night of qualifying. And Tyler Peterson, we had a really, really, really rough challenge series night. He wrecked the front end of the car, ended up on the wall on Wednesday night. He picked up the win over Cole Searing. Shane Edgerton, coming off the Sites Memorial win, was in third. Corey Tamman in fourth, and Jeff Massagill in the top 5. So those drivers were the top 5. All of them kept their spot for the feature event on Saturday. And then in your mod division, mods had a really good race to end the night. And you had Buzzy Adams, who ended up picking up the win. He looked very good on Thursday night. He had kind of struggled with some stuff on Wednesday, came back really strong on Thursday, ended up winning up the feature. Congratulations as well to Blake Jedving. Blake finished second in the qualifying feature on Thursday. Brady Gertis, who showed up on Thursday night, punched his ticket into the main event by finishing third. He looked really good in that event. Johnny and Brookie was in fourth, and Travis Sauer was 5th, and they all took their spot to be punched into the big show for Saturday. So that was qualifying on Thursday. So really good night overall from a racing perspective and a track conditions perspective. So Mason, we're going to head on over to Friday. What was some of your takeaways for Friday?
Well, Friday definitely you saw the intensity pick up because it's last night of trying to qualify to get in the qualifying feature and before you try to get into the LCQ, which takes place on Saturday. So definitely a lot of beating and banging in some of the heat races and get to the qualifying features. Mainly one qualifying feature that was a little bit rougher than the others. I think Jessup would have been very entertained by the Street Stocks on Friday nights.
Yes.
Because that was
because they were basically not giving an inch on that track.
Right.
If there was a hole, they were going for it.
Good.
Well,
so
kind of what threw them a curveball.
That reminds me of the old days. The old little dream days back when it wasn't a dream. It was almost a nightmare for everyone who got second back.
Well, and for the Street Stocks in particular, they kind of got it was a little bit of a curveball because typically like they worked the track before the Street Stock qualifying feature. Well, this time they waited until after the Street Stocks do the track prep. So they had a very different track than what they had all week long. And so kind of threw some drivers for a curve, and definitely the racing kind of matched that. And so I can take the first couple of classes if you want, John, on results.
Yeah, go ahead. You can take the first couple and I'll take the rest.
So Street Stocks, like you said, was interesting. A lot of bumping and banging, a lot of national title contenders in the mix that were still trying to qualify their way in. In the end, it was Jim Gullickson in the 21 machine who kind of just came out of a little bit of a break from racing, and he got around Kyle Dykoff late to start on the front row for the Saturday night feature. Second, like I said, Dykoff, Nick Trainer third, Tucker Pearson fourth, and Justin Vogel went from 13th to 5th, so he had to start a little bit deeper on Saturday night's race. Midwest Modifieds. I got to sit in the infield for this race. It's really cool watching from the infield. Like there's definitely some sliders being thrown, a lot of hard racing taking place. And it was young Blake Adams, who I think is 14 years old.
14. He's 14.
son of great Buzzy Adams, and he's leading rookie points for the Midwest Modifieds, and he held off Corey Stork, who threw about everything but the kitchen sink at him to try to get around him. But that was a very emotional victory lane for the Adams family in victory lane. So he got to start in the middle of the front row from Midwest Modifieds. Corey Stork ended up in second. Tony Liker from out in Wyoming was third. Zach Benson, your national point leader, in fourth. And Tanner Bitson was fifth. Late models, John. Late models was also a fun race to watch. Well, I should say one guy kind of stunk up the show a little bit.
Yeah, Cody Overton was there this past week. He was running one of Don Shaw's cars, and it was funny because Don and him had some problems on Thursday within their heats and swapped cars for Friday's show, and Don didn't even race on Friday. He was pretty much with the promoter hat on and was running kind of some of the things within the infield on Friday night. Cody, though, ended up winning. Jake Radetsky was second. Pat Dorr was third, and he had a great battle out there with John Sang. Young John Sang finished in the top 4, so great run to him. And then Jason Good rounded out your top 5 within your late models. So that was a very entertaining race. Again, top 10 went directly to the big show, and Matt Gilbertson was top 7. And your final stop was Travis Budaslavik. So yes, I said that right. He was in the top 10.
Indeed.
In your super stocks was another interesting race. You had Trevor Nelson. He was untouchable pretty much in that feature event. Max was basically right to his outside, but he ended up in the second spot. Also, congratulations to him too, Mason. He came back from into racing. He's been actually out of racing, I want to say, for a little bit, and also joined the field again here within your super stocks.
Yep. And Jessup, how do you pronounce Max's last name?
Don Dillinger.
Very good.
You are 100% correct. I was
Very
waiting
good.
for him to do it. I was like, yep, I'm going to have him announce it. So Zach Schultz, who usually shows up the final qualifying day, he's a great runner right out there from the Wilmer area, runs KRA quite a bit. He ended up in third to punch his ticket. Ryan Satter, who has now transitioned to a super stock, is now fourth in the qualifier. And Matt Johnson out of Aberdeen, who's had a ton of runner-up finishes this year, is in the top 5. So those were the drivers that punched their ticket within the super stock event for your top 5 finishers. And then in your mods was a hard-fought battle up front because you basically had 3 drivers that were the mix. You had Don Eichens, you had Tyler Peterson, you had Mike Stearns, and you had Justin Fremming that were right there going through and trying to punch their ticket to the front row of the big dance on Saturday night. And it was Don Eichens who held off TPO, Tyler Peterson, at the line to pick up that win on Friday night to start in the middle of the front row. It was a great battle up front between those drivers, with Landon Atkinson taking home 5th. So great job to those drivers out there. Kennedy Swan also punched her ticket on Friday night into the feature, finishing in 7th. Jake Tim was in 6th, and Nate Heinrich, who has come back to racing this year, punched his ticket in the top 8. So great job to those drivers, as that was the final event for Friday. Once again, finished very reasonable right around that 10 o'clock time frame.
Yep. And so that set the stage for Championship Saturday, which incorporates the last chance qualifiers for each of the classes to set the fields for at least 33 cars for each one of the races. They have their typical parade of champions, which I will say that actually went pretty quick. Like
it did. It went really quick this year. Yeah, because we had everybody pretty much lined up and ready to go. I mean, there was a couple of classes for the qualifying of races for the, like the last chances that had some carnage, unfortunately. There was a rollover in the super stocks, and there was a lot of beating and banging in the streets, and just a lot of damaged cars pretty much that came across out of that event, which was understandable. I was like, it's the final night to get in, your last chance. They're gonna be racing hard, and they were, especially when you have some drivers that weren't even in the big show yet. For instance, your national point contenders and your WISSOTA street stocks, both the Brower brothers, they had problems on Friday night. They were both in qualifying positions, ended up getting called for cautions. Both of them did not make it into the big show. Colton got one of the provisional spots, so he was able to utilize that, but Braden had to go through the consi as well. And they both punched their ticket into the big show. But I mean, that kind of shows you the depth of the competition that was still out there that has not made the big show yet in some of those classes.
Yep. And so we got the fields all set. Street stocks kicked off the action. Like we mentioned earlier, 4 out of the 5 features didn't even complete the first lap with the 3 wide start. So that's kind of unfortunate. Streets had a couple cautions on lap 1, but from there, they had 30 laps and they went green to checker and they were hauling. I mean, it was so your front row consisted of Andrew Hansen on the inside, Eric Riley on the outside, and then Jim Gullickson in the middle. Those 3 kind of like shuffled themselves out in front right away with Eric Riley leading the way. He led every single lap, maneuvered through lap traffic because they got to lap traffic pretty quick. And he pulled away from Kyle Jeanette, who's also a very strong runner, and got his first WISSOTA 100 title. He's actually been on a good roll the last several weeks. He's got 3 feature wins now this year, and all of them taking place at I-94. And so definitely a big win for Eric Riley. I was really pumped to see him up in victory lane. Second place was Kyle Jeanette out of Aumberdale, Wisconsin. And third place was Jim Gullickson in the 21X. And so nice job by the Street Stocks on a nice clean and green race once they got through the first lap mishaps. Midwest Mods, John. What about the Midwest Mods?
Yeah, Midwest Mods was a very interesting race. Once again, they had a caution there, right off the start, so they went down to double file for their race. But it was a really good battle up front between Brennan Waite, Matt Scow. You also had to throw Lucas Rodin into that mix. And then the driver that probably had maybe the heartbreak of the 100 award. No, there's probably 2 of them that you gave it to, but Corey Stork probably had maybe one of the fastest Midwest Modifieds in that feature event, and broke a left front on a restart. And he was restarting third. He had just gotten to the back bumper, actually to the inside of Scow, and both him and Scow were catching Brennan Waite. They had a caution, they restarted, and Corey's left front broke. And he eventually pulled in as he started to drop back after that. With how fast the track was, he didn't have the traction that he had before. But that opened the door for Scow. Scow was going after Brennan Waite. Brennan held on. It was pretty much, it was very much a high side dominant track during that period of time for the upfront for the leaders. And Scow was able to make that middle to bottom work at several times along with Rodin. But Brennan was just smooth on the high side, just keeping it in check. Scow was catching him because he was kind of starting to diamond the corners, and he almost spun out in turns 3 and 4 with a couple laps before he almost looped it again in 3 and 4. And the second time he almost did it in 3 and 4, it was almost, catastrophic for him because he almost went all the way around, held onto it, got back onto the track. I think Travis Sauer had just gotten around him right at that time frame. They were side by side on the front straightaway. And him and Sauer had a great battle for second and third. Travis was running his dad Ron's car during the 100th this past week. And but that allowed Brennan to have clear sailing in front of him, and he picked up a huge WISSOTA 100 win. So it was Brennan Waite that won, Matt Scow in second, and Travis Sauer third, Lucas Rodin in fourth. So really good battle up front and really good finishes for several of our local drivers here that we see, on a weekly basis up here. Was nice to see them represented quite well down at the 100.
Yep, absolutely. So another good race in the Midwest Mods, and then late models had a 50-lap race, so quite a few laps. Definitely had a big wreck at the first lap. I know Dustin Bloom took a tumble. He was okay. Everyone was okay, but it took out several cars right away. And so kind of had to settle in, and it was kind of a battle of attrition. Like that was the only major wreck that I remember. But then like with it being such a long race, I'm sure like some cars were running warm. Maybe they got damaged in the first wreck because I had a lot of cars kind of just drop out during the last long green flag stint. And so Tyler Peterson, who started on the pole, was pretty much the class of the field the entire race. Cole Searing was kind of tracking him, but can never really like reel him in to try to make a move. And again, the track was pretty high side dominant. So like catching him was one thing, passing him would have been completely another thing. So Tyler Peterson, who's in the midst of a stellar rookie season, got the WISSOTA 100 title in the late models. Second place was Cole Searing, and Cody Overton in the 42S, one of Don Shaw's cars, rounded out third. And I think that engine was on its last legs because he was smoking quite a bit the last 10 to 15 laps, and who knows how much longer he would have been able to stay out there. So those are your top 3 in the WISSOTA late models. Super Stocks, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Super Stocks was a very entertaining race up front because, like we mentioned, Lexington Cook started right up there on the front row, and he had been the dominant car throughout the week, and he took the lead, the drop of the green. held on for quite a while, but Dylan Nelson was slowly but surely reeling him in, and they had a restart. Dylan got on the bottom of him, passed him, and Dylan was kind of untouched for the rest of that feature event as he went on to pick up his first WISSOTA 100 win. And honestly, I think he was a dark horse that nobody really expected
Right.
on Saturday night, because you had basically kind of your three big names, if you want to call them, for the show. You had Trevor Nelson, who was your defending champion, 100. You had Shane Sabraski, who's got almost 900 feature wins underneath his belt as a whole, and then you obviously had Dexton, who has just been on a tear this year. And Dylan basically rattled the cage a little bit and got around him on a restart, and just drove away from there. Tim Johnson, great job to him. He started 19th and finished second, and he looked really good in that 81 machine. Tough break for Kurt Myers. Kurt got together with Hankemeyer on the front straightaway and went for a wild ride. My mom actually described it as, it almost reminded her of like Ryan Pierce's flip on the back straightaway at Daytona during the NASCAR race, because he was high up in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurt flew in the air pretty high up when he was rolling, and kind of destroyed that car. He was running fourth at the time. So tough break for him with over in that feature event as well. But yeah, congratulations to Dylan. Dylan ran a great race, picked up that feature win over there, and at the I-94 Speedway as part of the WISSOTA 100. Tim Johnson, obviously right there, finishing in that second spot, and then Dexton ended up in third. And Dexton was catching Tim towards the end of that event, but just ran out of time. Jordan Hankemeyer was in fourth, and then Dave Moss, who was running a borrowed car during the week, ended up in fifth. So great runs to those drivers over there at the WISSOTA 100.
Excellent. And then finishing off the night was the WISSOTA Modifieds. Was a battle up front right away between TPO and Don Eichens. Don Eichens was doing a really good job of holding off Tyler Peterson for the first half of the race, had several cautions throughout the event. And there was one caution that came out, and all of a sudden the 9E kind of just darted into the infield, just out of the blue. And it's like, oh man, and it ended up being a fuel pump belt or something like that.
Yeah, some type of pump, some type of a belt fell off.
Yeah. So that was very unfortunate for Don Eichens. He was definitely doing a great job holding off TPO. So kind of thought that the race was over at that point, but Dave Kane in the 2C was giving him all he had. Like, they were exchanging the lead several times, TPO running low, and then Dave Kane ran in the middle at the top, and kind of got in the level lap traffic towards the end, which allowed TPO to kind of sneak away, and he got his, I believe that's his second straight WISSOTA modified title in the WISSOTA 100. So congratulations to TPO on doubling up for WISSOTA 100s. Second place was Dave Kane. Blake Jedvig, another great run in third. Landon Atkinson from 14th to 4th, and Dan Ebert rounded out your top five. So very, very entertaining night of racing. Definitely no shortage of drama, no shortage of excitement, and I think the fans were treated to a very nice weekend at the WISSOTA 100, and we finished right around 11:30 on Saturday night. So great way to end the WISSOTA 100 this weekend. Do you guys I know you guys, Becca and Jess, have kind of peeked in and out of the WISSOTA 100. Any final takeaways that you saw from watching online?
I think this year was by far one of the best years of watching the WISSOTA 100. So I like the new changes, the new formats that they did, the new implications that they did this year, and I hope to see little improvements moving forward.
No, Becca's spot on. I mean, I've said most of my piece.
Awesome. So that's the WISSOTA 100. Briefly, just running down the winners from both rivers since I snuck out there. Bryce Hagelberg in Lightning Sprints. Austin Verrood in the Sport Mods. Corey Seekerson, big congrats to him for getting the win in the NX Legends. Tucker Peterson with a hard-fought win in WISSOTA Street Stocks. Caleb Gardner is a first-time winner in the IMCA Hobby Stocks. Shannon George in the Short Trackers. And our guy, Tyler Hall, in the IMCA Modifieds. So still plenty of racing to take in. Of course, I couldn't resist passing up and going to a track that was 20 minutes away. So that's the Track Pack report, and we will start to settle things out with the white flag delivered by Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro and Hot Sauce Enterprises. I believe we'll be seeing him in the next week or so at a couple of these year-end specials, hopefully. But be sure if you see him at the racetrack to stop down in his pit area, get some goodies, get all filled up, and have a nice chat with Isaac. He's a great guy and great family to encounter at the racetrack. So thank you so much, Isaac, for supporting us on the podcast. 4 wins of the week. Jessup's going last. Becca, you get to go first on wins of the week.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Go ahead, Becca. Ladies first.
My first win of the week goes to Sean Keena. Sean is originally out of Bismarck. He's been involved in dirt track racing for several years, primarily as a sponsor to drivers and different car classes and different racing events. But recently, he purchased himself a sport mod. He hit up a race last year, but this year he hit it hard and he picked up his very first win over at the Williston Basin Speedway this past weekend. He started 9th and finished first. So congratulations to Sean Keena for picking up his very first ever feature victory in the IMCA Sport Mods. My second win of the week goes to Corey Seekerson. Corey Seekerson, a last name that many people may recognize, used to race for many years a long time ago, took a hiatus from racing and recently came back in the form of the INX Legends. He picked up his first win in that racing division over at the Buffalo River Speedway on Sunday. So congratulations to Corey Seekerson on that win there. And then I'm going to give my last win of the week to Brody Carlsrud. Brody came up through the INX Legends, had some great success there. Most recently been racing the IMCA stock cars, also picked up a few wins in that racing division, but for the very first time in his racing career, he hopped behind the wheel of an IMCA modified, although the racing results didn't really reflect it, but I do give him a great kudos to hopping in and trying something new. Again, he had a DNF that doesn't reflect the experience and maybe the things that he learned behind the wheel, but I'm glad to see him try some new things, and who knows, maybe many years down the road we'll see him in an IMCA modified full-time.
You never know, he might be racing both at some point at the same time.
Maybe.
There's several drivers that do that around the country, so yeah. Awesome set of wins to kick things off. John, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. So my first one of the week, I have to give it over to Glenn Mitchell, who traveled a little bit with his Legend this past weekend over to Idaho and picked up a feature win over there. So congratulations to Glenn for the big win there in his NX Legend. So congratulations to Glenn on there. My next win of the week, I have to give it over to, we already talked about him as well, but Brennan Waite for picking up a huge win at the WISSOTA 100, one of the biggest ones in his career. Plus, didn't realize this when I was looking through my race pass, but Brennan has had a absolute fantastic season. Has only finished out of the top 5 once throughout the season, and that's impressive to say the least, especially with the amount of competition that's in the Midwest modified class as a whole. So he's had a great year overall and picked up some really big wins. So great job to Brennan there over at the WISSOTA 100. Huge win for him as well. My third win of the week, I'm going to give it over to, once again, the dark horse, Travis Hagen. He picked up back-to-back wins over in Williston. Obviously, he's had a fantastic season as a whole, and he's still right there in the thick of the IMCA national points battle for the mods. So congratulations to Travis. Travis has had a fantastic season, and it looks like he will likely end up for sure in that top 10 area within the mod national points.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll be fun to see where he ends up. Yeah, because he's had a really stellar season. Awesome. So I got 3 more wins. They all come from the WISSOTA 100, kind of some hidden wins here. First one I'm going to give to Jamie Norman, the 12X WISSOTA Midwest Modified. He's actually been looking pretty stout. One of the names that we don't normally see towards the front, but started off Wednesday. One is a heat race, transferred directly into the qualifying feature and ended up in the top 5, so he transferred directly into the big show. And I forgot to check where he finished on Saturday, but overall, really good weekend for Jamie Norman. Was really excited for him that he got to get a good run and good weekend down at the WISSOTA 100. My second win of the week goes to Bailey Roche. Drives the 28-star WISSOTA Superstock. Had a very rough wreck. I believe it was on Thursday in his heat race.
Yes.
He
got together running second. He was running second in that heat race and got together.
Yeah, and he ended up sideways on the front stretch and absolutely got T-boned by Gary Hushman, I believe is how he pronounced his last name. And both cars were very, very badly damaged, and was very surprised to see him at the racetrack the next day. And he was using a borrowed car from Ross Reed, who's another kind of local around the Alexandria area. And had to go through an LCQ, but I believe started 32nd. Or no, he actually got one of the provisionals. Started 32nd and moved 16
Yes.
spots up to 16th. So very good way to end the weekend. Very awesome that he got a borrowed car and was able to still make the show. And then my third win goes to another Superstock driver. It is Dennis Zek, who is probably one of the fun interviews that you see during WISSOTA 100 week. I loved his interview that he likes to make life tough on himself and tries to wait until the last minute to qualify, which of course was the case again. Won the LCQ and moved up 17 spots from 25th to finish 8th. So my third win of the week goes to Dennis the Menace Zek. Which leaves Mr. Jessup Pelkey. Your wins of the week, sir.
Well, I got multiples here. And my first one will go out to Ricky Thornton for clearing house down at Knoxville. And some people will say it probably was closer than what I'm going to say. He demolished everybody, and there should have never been a question in it. So hats off to you, sir. The second one, I guess I don't know. I'm conflicted here. Do I keep I could go all late models this week, or I could go with a stock car guy.
Ooh,
I'm
go
gonna
with the
let you
stock
pick,
car guy.
Mason.
I'm curious.
Well, who won the IMCA Super Nationals, Mason?
Which class?
In the stock cars.
In the stock car class is the stock car guy.
Mason, I can help you if we need help.
Does he also
'Cause-
race a mod too?
Yes.
Yes.
Because Mason, I come prepared as an announcer.
I think, was it Dylan Thornton?
It
Yes.
was. So
Yes.
I will give my second win to Dylan Thornton, as he already got a legendary victory and down at Super Nationals, and he picked up a victory this past weekend down at Deer Creek
Mm-hmm.
for the USRA. I can't remember what they call it, but it was
a
a
stock car nationals.
Yeah, stock car nationals.
Okay, so it's 10,000 to win, and he picked that up. So hats off to you, good sir. And now I'm going to end with late models and a little modified and a little USRA late model action here, as my third win goes to the Nelson family, as they, I would say, had a very dominant weekend over at the legendary 100 at Cedar Lake. As the first night of qualifying, Daryl took the late model win in their qualifying feature, and he also took the modified win in the qualifying feature. In the USRA, Caden got third, and then the second night, Daryl got second in the late model qualifying feature, and then he won again in the modified qualifying feature, and Caden got third in the USRA feature, and then on the final night, Daryl got third in the late model feature, and then oddly enough, he won the modified feature, which he won everything he could win there for feature wise for mods, and then Caden got second. So that is a very high finishing family, and that is a promising career, hopefully beginning to blossom out in the eastern side of WISSOTA.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a pretty solid weekend for that family. Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. So those are some great wins. And I almost forgot, went out of order than what we typically do, because we didn't even talk about what's upcoming this weekend. I know the weather seems a little bit iffy.
Rain, because the Rain Man is going one direction. I'm sure the next rain person. Now, folks, you don't realize this, but Mason is starting to give his powers to other people and Mason might only attack one track, but he can send his minion out to another track, and they are the evil rain people. So if you see any of these people, Mason or Kayla, they will make it rain.
Would you call it
This
a
is
reign
true.
of terror?
It kind of is a reign of terror.
Yeah. John, you know what their favorite energy drink is? Rain.
H2O.
Anyway.
They like water.
What's upcoming next, Dakota Dirt?
Rain. Lots of rain.
Well, racing wise, if none of that happens.
We
Yeah,
will
we're
all be
hoping for no
racing.
rain.
Well, North Dakota is very limited for stuff for racing. It's the big one. Friday is the night one of the 52nd annual Jamestown Stock Car Stampede. You got all the good classes there. A little bit of WISSOTA, a little bit of Enix, a little bit of IMCA. And then you got your bombers and slingshots. And it'll be a good time. John, heats and dashes Friday night.
Yes. Yep.
And then Saturday is the big dance time. B mains and features, and it'll be a good time. And if you guys can't make it out, if you're weary and you're not comfortable making it out for whatever reason, you can always watch it on DakotaSpeedway.tv. That is all that North Dakota has to offer. Now, let's talk about other events, because there are a lot of events to cover. There is, let's see, casinos having their doubleheader. I think there is a fall classic out west. I think it is Big Sky.
Sheridan's the fall classic.
Sheridan, my bad. I saw Big Sky was racing too, but
they are racing too. Yep.
Are they doing the 360 sprint cars? I think that's their last
chance
for that. So that'll be a good time out there as well. Now we look out east. You got the legendary Punky Manor Race of Champions out at the Red Cedar. You have the Piston Cup over at Granite City, and you also have the Paul Bunyan Stampede over at the Bemidji. And what else am I missing?
Thunder Bay has a doubleheader.
Oh, that's right. They got more than a doubleheader. They got
triple header. Sorry,
triple.
They have a big show.
It's a big one.
Which they'll probably have at least 50 to 60 B mods, because they have 40 on a regular basis.
I'm thinking they're going to have, don't quote me to this, a lot of cars.
You're probably right.
That's what I am. Shocked.
I am too.
I'm shocked that Jessup said that.
There's going to be so many cars at the border. You must leave now.
Yes. So yeah, definitely plenty of racing action this weekend. Definitely going to be watching the weather to see where we'll end up. I'm hoping that the weather clears itself out and the forecast kind of clears up. So hopefully we get some
another one. There's
good racing in.
The Fall Jamboree.
Oh, down at Deer Creek. Yep.
Yes.
A bunch of USMTS and USRA B mods. So if you're into modifieds, that's another good place. So there's a lot of good stuff, Mason. Just good. Good old fashioned fun.
Absolutely. Well, you can find all four of us, weather permitting, at the Jamestown Stock Car Stampede. So be sure to stop by and say hi to us. If you run into us in the stands or in the pits, we'll be all over the place. I know Jessup will probably be behind the camera. Of course, Becca and John will be announcing, and I'll be roaming around doing whatever. I mean, who knows what I'll be doing. But yeah.
You should be talking to our Stock Car Stampede Shakedown entrance, Mason.
Yes, we have.
We still have 2 spots as of tonight. This is Tuesday night that we're taping it left. So still have a couple spots left, and we've been actually getting hit up by a couple drivers. So again, it is first come, first serve. So if you haven't been in the Stampede in the last 5 years,
in the late model portion,
the late model portion, or you have never raced the Stampede in late models, be sure to hit us up, and you will be part of that program.
John, what day is this that we're taping?
This is Monday.
All right. I'll let it go.
Technically Tuesday.
Technically it's Tuesday now.
Tuesday. I deserve a caution on that. I did say Tuesday.
Say Tuesday night when we're taping it.
I did, and for that I deserve my own caution. But Mason, you also deserve a caution too.
Oh yeah, I deserve a caution.
Why does Mason get a caution?
On the poll for next week's episode. So Jessup, pressure on you.
Am I on the poll?
Yeah, you're the one that doesn't have a caution.
I think you moved up because I don't think you had a caution tonight.
I'm proud of
for once you behaved yourself.
Sometimes sometimes you just gotta give everyone the bumper and give them the chrome
Mason,
horn and push them off the track and spin
Mason,
'em.
I have to give you credit because you finally got him into line. So thank you.
No
When
kidding.
you
I
say
should probably
into line, you mean the front.
we should probably throw the checkered flag on this podcast before Jessup screws it up. So that'll do it for episode number 29 of season 2. Be sure as always to like, share, and comment on Facebook or YouTube where you can watch our videos. Spotify, Google, and Apple's where you can find us in the podcasting form. Thank you to our sponsors, Hitch Harness with Tyler Hall and Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro. Only a couple weekends left, so we hope to see you out there back in the track.